Awesome, Kelly. Thank you so much. And that's right. We have our next guest coming on now. It's the one and only Ryan Schreiber, who is the VP of Innovation and Growth over at Metafora. Ryan, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Yeah, thanks. I think we're all lucky that there's only one of me. And I just want to say, watching that weather update, it made me, A, glad I'm not brokering freight anymore, and B, that I moved to the South. My wife made me leave Chicago because that just seemed terrible. So good luck to that rancher and everybody who's out there, and stay safe and whatever.
100%. I am also thankful from time to time that I'm here in Chattanooga, but every once in a while it just gets so cold. I'm just like, this is why I left Boston in the first place. But
my wife told me it was cold in the house. My wife told me it was cold in the house this morning because it was 64 on our thermostat, because we had the heat off or whatever. So I would like to remind her. I'll send her that clip. Hey, Kaylee, that was a good job.
And you're like, I know cold. I've been in Chicago. I know cold.
Yeah.
Ryan, let's get into our topic a little bit today, talking about some reaction to some legislative things going on across the area. What's going on right now in the Metafora side of things?
So, we're really looking ahead to, next year and starting to kind of keep track of, the trends that are, that we're seeing in the industry from talking to our customers. Obviously, there's been a lot of change over the last 6 months, the market flipping from a capacity perspective, also, talks of recession and inflation and that kind of stuff. So, as people get to the end of the year, they start looking ahead a little bit more, making these plans for next year. And so we're really starting to look at, kind of what next year looks like and helping our customers plan for 2023.
And that's a huge one. Of course, you mentioned some of those aspects around inflationary pressure, things like that. What are going to be some of the biggest topics that you're looking at, or biggest trends, I should say, going into the first half of 2023?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of things that we're hearing from talking to our customers, and one big one that I think has surprised us and most folks is, really that M&A activity is still pretty hot. And they expect it to remain pretty hot into 2023. And so while, deal flow is likely to slow down some, and valuations are likely to come down some and are coming down, I mean, there are still deals to be made. And our customers, in the PE world and also the corp dev teams of some of our larger customers, they're still out there on the hunt. They're still out there looking for deals that can be valuable and they can add value to their organization. And we've seen that. I mean, deal flow has slowed down, but Warner buying Reed TMS recently, is just one recent example of, the deals are still out there to be made, and we still think that they're gonna continue into next year.
I think that's really interesting because even though our macroeconomic environment might be a little shaky right now, you're still seeing a lot of these freight companies say, okay, maybe it's right for M&A. That was one thing that I was really kind of questioning folks about back towards the middle of the year when we started to see this market downturn is, what do you think M&A is going to look like moving into the end of the year and the start of next year? That was one of our headlines this morning as well, folks saying, we might continue to see opportunities for this. One of the questions that I saw was survivability of some of these smaller trucking companies who maybe popped onto the scene during the pandemic and were doing business but couldn't survive a massive market downturn. Are these larger companies, these enterprise companies, now seeing that as a huge opportunity to go and snap them up? And maybe that's how they survive, is just by being acquired?
Yeah, I mean, Elton John made a song about this about 30 years ago, right? It was Circle of Life, right? I mean, and there's a lot of examples of that, throughout musical theater. You've got the Sunrise, Sunset from Fiddler on the Roof and whatnot. And tying that to trucking, I mean, that's the story of our industry, of trucking, right? Of domestic trucking is, the spot market, is flooded with freight. Carriers go out, they get leases on trucks, that floods the spot market with capacity. Those drivers then don't have as much freight they need to lease on, et cetera. So, that is what always happens, certainly. For most of the large trucking companies, they have lease purchase arms. And so they're making money kind of regardless of what happens. Either they're making money from leasing these trucks, or they're making money from having, folks lease onto them through lease purchase agreements. So, certainly that is at play to some extent, right? Because that's how they get, kind of more drivers into the queue. But really what I think is interesting about the look forward into 2023 from an M&A perspective is people are still looking to buy, mature businesses, maybe that are a little bit financially distressed, but mostly they're looking to buy good, solid businesses with a history of a history of success, where the owners are ready to move on, or they can add additional capabilities and competencies, whether that's trucking, logistics, whatever it might be. I mean, they're looking to be opportunistic in this market to set themselves up for that next upswing to better service their customers, solve more problems for their customers, et cetera.
And definitely with that M&A activity and consolidation, definitely a big topic going into 2023. One of the big things I've been asking a lot of people is what are going to be some of those trends that are going to be under the radar that folks should be watching out for? Are there any things that you're seeing right now that isn't getting a lot of attention that more people should be paying attention to?
Yeah, I mean, as money becomes tighter and it becomes more expensive to get, and let's level set on kind of where things are, right? I mean, rates are still as high or, higher than they were at the beginning of 2020. Certainly, we're not in rate-a-get-in like we were in 2019. Money is more expensive, but it's not as expensive, as it has been at other periods in American history. I mean, certainly not like heights of American history, but it is more expensive. And so, businesses are obviously looking for areas and ways where they can save money, but still service their customers, right? Still make money, still grow. And so really that lends itself to this trend towards remote work, what we would call location strategy. So that's kind of like, where are people? What are they doing? Why is anybody anywhere in terms of, executing on their job function? And what are opportunities for us to maximize sort of the impact of our labor force and build in flexibility. So we're actually, we are a consultant, as everyone knows. We're seeing some increased demand in our services because it gives our customers flexibility, right, to not have W-2 employees, but even things like remote staffing. Our partners at Lean, for instance, are seeing growth because folks are looking at opportunistic ways to drive down SG&A in that respect, right? As they're kind of thinking about weathering a storm that's a little bit uncertain, and even just remote work. So those are certainly things that are interesting because with remote work, right, you can get the best talent kind of regardless of where they live. And so there's going to be sort of specific areas where those strategies might work and others that won't. But we certainly expect that to continue and potentially even accelerate. And so I know that's a little bit of like a hot topic, if you will. Like there's certainly folks who say, I could never have anybody remote. That won't be a sticking trend. There's people who say no one's ever going to go back into the office. But we're certainly seeing at least that middle ground of it becoming a little bit more normalized to explore it for certain roles, certain folks within your organization, and particularly in that hiring strategy.
At least just being a little bit more flexible in what you can offer your employees, right? I think very much so the days of stringent standard work environments aren't up and gone because everybody knows that, hey, I can do this job and not necessarily have to conform to your standard of working hard. Ryan, so you're going to be on our year-end recap episode next week for us to finish out the year of FreightWaves Now. Anything that you are maybe looking forward to talking about Metafora's accomplishments in the year? I know we're going to dive a little bit deeper into it coming up next week.
I'm just looking forward to hanging out with you, Kaylee. I mean, it's a lot of fun. I wanted to ask, do I need to dress up? You haven't really given me a ton to go out. Do I need a Santa hat? What are we going with here? I'm Jewish, so can I dress up as Hanukkah Harry, or is that out of bounds? What's the kind of deal?
This is an equal opportunity holiday celebration.
Great.
So anything that you want to put on is totally fine. Word has it, Anthony Smith is dressing up like an elf. So that's all that we can talk about. But whatever you want, I'd love to see it. If you want to throw up a menorah, we'd love to see it. Whatever you want.
All right, great. I'll coordinate something with Dooner and Anthony. Then we'll come up with something good.
All right, Ryan. Thank you for joining us today. We'll talk to you next week.
See y'all. Thanks for having me.
So, you know how they have Robert Bain, the strongest man in logistics? Maybe I can be the strongest elf.
The strongest elf I think the smartest elf economist in the North Pole.
Just keep adding qualifications to that, and I'm just going to keep rising to the top.
And there you go. Entry level economist, here you come. All right, we're going to toss it on over to the wall. We've got our next carrier update.